Hello, everyone. Welcome back. We're happy to have you with us today. And welcome again to Understanding the Basics of DBT. This is a 4-part foundational skills series, and this is session 4, Strategies for Interpersonal Effectiveness. Next slide, please. This webinar is sponsored by the Northeast and Caribbean Mental Health Technology Transfer Center, or MHTTC, and we're housed at Rutgers School of Health Professions in the Department of Psychiatric Rehabilitation and Counseling Professions. My name is Kathy Rivera, and I am the project coordinator of this center, and I'll be introducing our webinar speaker for today. The MHTTC is funded by SAMHSA, the Substance Abuse and Mental Health Services Administration, to enhance the capacity of the behavioral health workforce to deliver evidence-based and promising practices to individuals with mental health conditions. We also address the full continuum of services spanning mental illness prevention, treatment, and recovery supports. And we provide training-related workforces to such as police, first responders, primary care providers, vocational services, etc., to provide effective services to people with mental health conditions. We also utilize supplemental funding to support school teachers and staff to address student mental health. We also offer training programs in evidence-based practices for serious mental health conditions, wellness and recovery for providers and people with mental health conditions, school mental health, comprehensive multi-tiered services and supports, Hispanic and Latinx mental health education, as well as online education courses such as Wellness Matters, Illness Management and Recovery, Functional Thinking, and more. Next slide, please. As a reminder, all of our training programs featured on your screen, as well as our products and services, are available to you at no cost. Next slide, please. And if you're interested in staying up to date with the events and products the Northeast and Caribbean MHTTC is providing, we ask that you please sign up to receive our email communications. You can sign up by scanning the QR code provided on the screen. Next slide, please. Following the webinar, you'll be asked to complete a brief survey. We value this feedback and use it to improve our activities and inform future activities. The surveys are also important because our continued funding is linked to their completion. So we thank you in advance for your participation. Next slide, please. We also want to let you know that this webinar is being recorded and will be posted on our website along with the presentation slides and any relevant resources. This will be available for everyone during the week of July 8th. Next slide, please. At the time of this presentation, Marian Delphin-Rittman served as Acting Assistant Secretary for Mental Health and Substance Use at SAMHSA. The opinions expressed herein are the views of the speakers and do not reflect the official position of the Department of Health and Human Services, or SAMHSA. No official support or endorsement of DHHS or SAMHSA for the opinions described in this presentation is intended or should be inferred. Next slide, please. We encourage you to interact with our presenter during the webinar by using the chat feature. Please post any comments or questions you have in the chat, and I will collect your questions as we go and ask them of the presenter during the Q&A time toward the end of the presentation. During the webinar, our presenter may pose questions to you, so please use the chat feature to answer them. The MHTTC network is committed to using affirming, respectful, and recovery-oriented language in all activities. Next slide, please. We wanted to let you know that the new 3-digit dialing code for the Suicide and Crisis Lifeline is now available. 988 is not just a suicide crisis line. It is for people experiencing a suicidal, mental health, or substance use crisis, or any kind of emotional distress. It's also for people who are concerned about someone experiencing a crisis. You can connect by calling or texting 988, or you can chat online at 988lifeline.org. Calls, texts, or chats are responded to by a trained crisis counselor. Next slide, please. Now let's begin our webinar. We have Crystal Socha with us today. Crystal is a PhD candidate and senior training and consultation specialist at Rutgers School of Health Professions in the Department of Psychiatric Rehabilitation and Counseling Professions. Crystal's primary role includes providing in-person and remote training, consultation, and technical assistance to New Jersey's agencies that provide community support services. She has over 10 years of experience in the behavioral health field, delivering trauma-informed, culturally responsive, gender-affirming care and supporting individuals in building a life worth living. Before joining Rutgers, she provided recovery-oriented services in supportive housing, intensive in-home and in-community settings, community mental health centers, integrated primary care, hospital systems, and private practices. She has received a 40-hour foundational training in dialectical behavioral therapy, DBT, by a Linehan board-certified clinician, and utilizes a DBT-informed approach with her work as a counselor. So I want to welcome everyone, and I'll turn it over to Crystal.
Thank you so much, Kathy. Welcome, everyone. This is our final part of our foundational series. I'm so glad to see familiar faces or names popping up on the screen once again. We are in session 4, so this is our strategies for interpersonal effectiveness, the final module of DBT. So we will be talking about all things interpersonal effectiveness in this final hour here together. Again, this is a foundational overview, so I will do my best to cover many of the skills here, but hoping that this serves as a jumping off point for you to continue to learn more. Some of the learning objectives, as always, we will be discussing interpersonal effectiveness as it relates to effective relationships, setting boundaries, communicating needs, helping individuals keep and build relationships, as well as learning how to end relationships that might be destructive. So we'll talk about that in just a moment. As always, if you were here last time, we do provide homework. DBT is very much skills-driven and homework or take-home practice-driven. Did you get a chance to practice an emotion regulation skill? And if so, what went well? What was difficult or challenging? Did you get a chance to teach someone else the skill? So we talked about opposite action, noticing perhaps a moment where you could act opposite on that action urge. So if you're experiencing sadness and you have the urge to isolate, stay in bed, could you find a way to act opposite in that moment? Maybe you practiced another skill. We talked about riding the wave as it relates to emotions and noticing that emotions, just like waves, eventually pass and crash. Let me know if you got a chance to practice in the chat. Would love to hear from you. And good morning and welcome from wherever you're joining. See some riding the wave. The wave is so amazing to practice. Noticing was helpful for me, helped me slow down. Yeah, once again, we're especially living on the East Coast, and maybe this is, excuse me, for me, a New Jersey thing, that we are very much on autopilot. We are a fast-moving state bordering New York, so we are constantly on the go. Maybe that's just the era that we're in, but love the idea of taking a moment to pause and slow down, noticing what's coming up for us, letting those feelings pass. I see, yes, I had to remind myself to step back, slow down, acting opposite. I was able to stay the course, keeping in mind in tune. Was a little challenging. Didn't get a chance to teach anyone, that's okay. Amy says lots of practice with me and my kids while on vacation. Out of routine certainly makes things harder and requires a lot of riding the waves. Yes, especially when we're not part of a structure and routine, like you mentioned. Riding the wave is something that we kind of have to go through these ebbs and flows. Keisha says, reminder that you are not your emotion allowed me to step back and reflect on the feeling. Yes. Always on to the next thing. Don't even enjoy the moment. Yes. I know we're constantly going, never really savoring or enjoying or holding space for the moments. Donna says I had to keep redirecting myself, and that's okay. Again, all of these skills are driven and guided by mindfulness. So when we're noticing that our mind is wandering, or we're noticing that our thoughts are wandering, or we're noticing that it's hard to stay focused, that noticing piece is the most important part. So bringing ourselves back. Nicole says finding gratitude in a stressful moment. Wonderful. So that to me sounds almost like some of our even distress tolerance skills where we're finding ways to improve the moment. Wonderful. Okay. We'll keep moving, but thank you for those who did get a moment to practice or a moment to pause or a moment to notice what was coming up for us. I love that, again, reminder that you are not your emotion. Similarly, you are not your thoughts. And it's normal to have these kind of fluctuating feelings and thoughts as well. Otherwise, we wouldn't have any meaning attached to our experiences. Okay. So once again, we are in our last part here, interpersonal effectiveness, which really teaches us to helps us to maintain and improve relationships, both with loved ones, partners, friends, colleagues, strangers, your local neighbor, person at the grocery store, whoever that might be, being able to be effective in those relationships. We'll also briefly highlight skills for ending destructive relationships or interfering relationships. So as always, we start with this kind of framework that's driven and really rooted in all of DBT, these options for solving any problem. And these are the 4 options. If you've been here before, this looks familiar to you as always. I'm going to say as always multiple times throughout this presentation, but it really is the root of DBT. And we're at this part of solving the problem by changing the situation or by leaving the situation. So is there a way to communicate to a person that you love that things aren't going as you like? Is there an opportunity for repair? Is there an opportunity to build? Is there an opportunity to take into consideration your values and decide to end the relationship? So that's where we're at. We have, again, covered all these other areas. We talked about emotion regulation. We talked about distress tolerance. We talked about, Marshall Linehan describes this option of staying miserable or not using any skills. And really this means using ineffective skills or making things worse. Okay. So in interpersonal effectiveness, we teach individuals to really attend to their relationships. And by doing that, they're able to be skillful in getting what they want or what they need from others. They're balancing their priorities versus their demands. They are balancing the wants versus the quote shoulds. We're helping individuals to strengthen some of those current relationships and once again, end destructive ones. And we'll talk about what that looks like, as well as creating this balance in relationships. And that's done through dialectics, another piece that's very much foundational in DBT. But we know there's so many things that get in the way of being effective. So what are some of the things that come to mind when working with individuals in getting in the way of being effective in interpersonal relationships? What gets in the way? It's either past experiences, expectations, trauma, attachment styles. Comparisons of self and others. Yeah, and think about the people that you serve are often comparing to, I don't know, movie relationships, relationships with other close friends, or relationships that they observe in other individuals around them. Difference in communication, attachment styles, point of view, personal frame of reference, past difficulties, not having good boundaries, unforgiveness, boundaries, fatigue. Yes. Distortions. So many things that come to mind, and I'm sure this may not even be an exhaustive list, but we'll talk about some of these. The first, of course, that comes to mind is the lack of needed skills. And this is true for really any of these modules, but many people have not been taught these skills. Many people grow up in an environment that we talked about early on that could have been invalidating. They don't have role models or parental figures, caregivers, people in their life that serve as people who form effective, quote, healthy relationships. So it really takes a lot of time to observe, practice, define some of these skills, especially if these individuals were not taught them early on. So this can be a moment to ask, or have the individual you're working with ask, do I have the skills I need? Maybe they don't. That's where you come in. Another piece could be indecision. So this person may not actually know what they want out of a relationship. And I am chronically indecisive, so I struggle with this all the time in just general areas of my life. But when we're thinking about interpersonal effectiveness, this person may not know what they want from the other person. They might get stuck in either extreme, either asking for too much versus not asking for anything at all, saying no to everything versus giving in to everything. So kind of these perhaps trauma responses of people pleasing, fawning, versus the opposite, perhaps shutting down, struggling with responding. So in these situations, we're helping individuals identify, do I know what I want in this interaction? Another thing that is difficult and gets in the way are emotions, of course. Individuals might say things out of emotion mind. It's so easy to react or respond out of emotions and our emotion mind, especially for those who experience intense emotional ability. This person might have the skills that they need, but their emotions are very high. Maybe they're in that kind of crisis red zone, if you recall from early on. So this individual may need to ask themselves, am I too upset to use my interpersonal skills? Maybe this person needs to go back to their crisis survival skills. Emotions are too hot. We can't think clearly. We can't make decisions correctly. We can't make decisions effectively, rather. Maybe they need emotion regulation. They need to self-soothe. They need to ride the wave a little bit. They need to let this intense emotion pass. Emotions are so strong, and maybe they have the skills for moments where they're sad, but they don't have skills for moments when they're experience intense anxiety. Another piece is prioritizing short-term goals over long-term goals. So this is, again, responding out of emotion. So individuals are acting on this impulsive urge, and this might get in the way of their long-term goal, which are often more value-driven. And this really requires helping individuals access their wise mind. So asking, are my short-term goals getting in the way of my long-term goals? So this failure to think about the consequences, this failure to perhaps even a little more CBT, but play that tape forward. This is often common with individuals who have a very low distress tolerance, and they might jump into a situation, even if it's not consistent with their long-term goals. So it's this quick, impulsive, reactive acting on decisions. Interference from the environment. We know that sometimes the environment is more powerful than us or the person that we're working with. So thinking about situations where the individual may need to ask themselves, are there other people in the interaction that are so powerful that they don't have to do anything I ask? Do they have the authority to make me do what they want? Thinking about, if you don't pay your bill on time and you keep pushing that mail to the side and the mail keeps going to the side and you're stuffing it at the bottom of your to-do list and the pile on your desk. And eventually that bill is going to go to collections. So perhaps you might, again, worst case scenario, might have a warrant out for your arrest and then you refuse to be arrested and this may not go very well. So again, environment is more powerful than you are in that case. Had you not perhaps pushed that bill under the pile of extra stuff. But there could be an authority figure or, again, the environment that is more powerful and contributing to the difficulty in this being effective. The last part is, or are these worries based on myths? I also see someone mention secondary gains, yes. So worries and assumptions based on interpersonal myths often come from our upbringing, cultural background, societal myths and expectations, cultural norms, values that get in the way of asking for what you want, maybe fear of asking for what you want because you and your culture and your family values not talking about anything or asking for help. So exploring if these worries, assumptions, myths are getting in the way of using interpersonal effectiveness skills. And so perhaps challenging some of those myths and checking the facts. So there's a couple myths when we think about interpersonal effectiveness, and there's a great handout that shares so many more. But what are some things that come to mind for you? And I'll share a couple examples because this might prompt some more. But when we're looking at two categories of interpersonal effectiveness, we're looking at objectives effectiveness as well as relationship and self-respect effectiveness. So some myths for getting what you want or what you need. Individuals might believe, I don't deserve to get what I want or need, or I must be really inadequate if I can't fix this myself. For relationships or self-respect effectiveness, there's also additional myths in this area as well. So there's this belief that this person is talking to, they should have known their behavior would hurt my feelings and I shouldn't have to tell them. I've known this person for so long, how could they hurt my feelings? They're supposed to read my mind and they should know how I feel. Everybody lies could be another myth that this person believes. Are there any other statements that you often hear from clients, especially when working with interpersonal conflict or challenges? Adrienne says, they should have to read my mind. Yes, I know, if only we could read people's minds. No one will help me. Yeah, maybe this kind of sense of helplessness. I have a history of knowing that people don't always show up for me, so I know that no one is going to be able to help me. No one listens to me. And again, a lot of this is, very much rooted in that invalidating environment. And these are things that perhaps to us, we realize, okay, they are myths and they may make it difficult to be effective, but these are really things that people believe inherently. No one cares. I'm too much. I don't want to bother anyone. They or everyone does this, fill in the blank to me. Yeah. Yeah. Maybe there's this fear of upsetting someone else. I can't stand it when I make someone else upset. Or if I ask someone and they say no, it's going to kill me. So there's no point in asking them. I'll figure it out myself. And so all of these statements get in the way. And there's, again, this great worksheet that helps individuals to identify some of these myths and perhaps explore another kernel of truth. So being a little bit dialectic in this approach. But again, keep those things in mind as they impact being effective. And oftentimes when we're working with relationships or talking to people about relationships, or if you're in a treatment program and working in a program or an agency, often there's some variation of a personal bill of rights. So I've included this whole list here, but it was adapted by Mary Ellen Copeland, who is known for developing the Wellness Recovery Action Plan, WRAP, which was designed to help individuals promote wellness. But this has been used in many variations, and some of these pieces can be helpful to bring up and to discuss and talk about, especially when you're working in, again, groups settings, individual settings, building relationships, acknowledging, this person's inherent rights. I have the right to ask for what I want. I have the right to change my mind. I have the right to say, I don't know. I have the right to change and to grow. Maybe at one moment I was thinking I wanted to, go to this party over the weekend, and I have the right to actually change my mind, and that doesn't make me a bad person. So really used as a set of almost affirmations, reflections to help individuals recognize their inherent worth. So keep this in mind and feel free to use it, of course, in however version you'd like, but helping individuals to really promote their own self-respect, their self-worth, their ability to be assertiveness, improving their overall well-being, helping them to maintain these really balanced relationships, and acknowledging we're human too, and we have rights and choices and the power of autonomy in relationships as well. Okay, so our core interpersonal effectiveness skills include some of the following. And the DBT manual really nicely and seamlessly goes through these set of skills in this kind of order. So the first is clarifying priorities. So exploring how important is getting what you want out of a situation, how important is keeping the relationship, or how important is maintaining your self-respect. So those are kind of the three domains, and I'd like to just help individuals recall those three. So how important is getting what you want? How important is keeping the relationship? And how important is keeping or maintaining your self-respect? What is your priority? And helping clients figure out what they really want out of a situation, whatever that situation might be. In one moment, it may be helpful to get what they want. In another situation, it may be helpful to maintain that relationship. In another, perhaps their values are overriding and it's important to maintain their self-respect, meaning being very values driven. The next skill is that dear man skill for objectives objectives effectiveness. So helping individuals really identify how to be effective through being assertive and obtaining their goal, getting what they want or getting what they need. Relationship effectiveness is the give skill, and we'll talk about these in a little bit of detail, but being able to maintain relationships so that others feel good about themselves, you feel good about yourself in this relationship, while also trying to maintain your goal or objective. Self-respect effectiveness, so that FAST skill. Again, Marsha Linehan loves her acronyms, so don't feel like you need to memorize all of these. Eventually, they kind of come as second nature, but the FAST skill helps individuals to maintain or increase their self-respect. And then there's also handouts for factors to consider. So deciding how firm or how intense you want to be in asking for something or for saying no. So all of these skills are the core interpersonal effectiveness skills that really help teach individuals how to deal with high conflict situations, how to navigate those relationships, how to get what they want and what they need, how to request things that they might need, all in a way that might still maintain their self-respect and maintain that relationship as well, and getting others to like you as well as you like yourself for the way that you approach this situation as well. So there are 3 goals in interpersonal situations. And again, it is broken down into these 3 categories, just as I mentioned. So objectives, effectiveness, and I'm not being effective in saying the word effectiveness, dear man skill, which is probably one that many of us have heard of, usually a go-to interpersonal effectiveness skill, really great to use regardless of your theoretical orientation or modality. But this is helping individuals to explore the outcome they want from the other person. So this is helping individuals to be clear and as specific as possible, asking what result or change do I want from this interaction? And making sure that this individual is as clear as possible. And there's a script that we'll go through as well with this skill. With relationship effectiveness, the give skill, this is where individuals are looking to make sure that this relationship still goes smoothly. They really value this relationship and this person. They want to develop, improve, build this relationship, and also understand the other person's perspective. So perhaps this is helping the individual ask the question, how do I want the other person to feel about me after the interaction is over? And then the last part is self-respect effectiveness, so that fast skill. How do I want to feel about myself after the interaction is over? Maybe this includes, again, very values-driven, so standing up for yourself, defending a friend, aligning with your morals and values. Sometimes it's hard for individuals to let go of, quote, winning or proving a point, and they're very much driven by the need to win. But many of these approaches and kind of these myths to being effective result in compromising the relationship. So how does this person want to feel about themselves? So when we're thinking about, for example, if you're working with an individual who is in recovery and is approached by a friend or neighbor to engage in substances, and maybe you're helping this person outline what they want. So what is their goal out of this situation? If they are working on promoting this ongoing recovery lifestyle, perhaps they're actively engaged in recovery support groups. Maybe their objective is not to engage in that substance. So they know the goal of this interaction is, although they're meeting someone who perhaps could have been a friend, the outcome they want is to not engage in substances. So that would go under that objectives effectiveness. With the relationship, maybe this person's goal is to still keep the relationship with this friend. Maybe this person is not someone that they want to let go of as far as this connection. And then with self-respect effectiveness, this might look like, again, not going against their values of having this ongoing recovery lifestyle. So keeping that value of, perhaps in their words, maintaining sobriety, maintaining recovery, that's important to them. So in this case, perhaps the objective is the most important. This person does not want to engage in substances. They know if they engage in substances, it will put them at risk for engaging in illegal activities, which will put them at risk for being incarcerated again. So helping this individual identify, okay, my goal is not to engage in substances. So right there, we figured out, okay, let's figure out how we can use this dear man skill to be effective. And that's where we are here. Perfect transition. So our dear man skills, anyone familiar with this one? I see a hand, so perhaps that means you are familiar. I see a couple yeses. Okay. And this is a really honestly helpful one. And when you see individuals using it on their own, boy, do your eyes light up and smile with joy. So when we're thinking about objectives effectiveness, we're using the acronym Dear Man, and this is for helping individuals to get what they need out of a situation, making a request, saying no to unwanted requests, resolving interpersonal conflict, being able to be effective in achieving that goal. So the first step is to describe, and we are helping individuals describe with only using the facts, no feelings, not asking for anything in this particular point, but we are simply describing the whole truth and nothing but the truth out of the situation at hand. E for express. So now we're inserting those I statements. So if we're describing a scenario with a partner, and perhaps we're making an observation with this describe. So maybe this observation is, I've noticed that we spend less time together since you've been working longer hours. That's describing. There's no judgment, there's no feelings just yet. The express, again, is that I statement, that I statement. So it might be, I feel lonely, I feel upset, I feel frustrated, whatever that might be. Asserting is asking for what you want. Again, people can't read our minds. Maybe this person didn't realize that this less time spent together was impacting you. So maybe acknowledging, the express would be, I feel lonely and miss our time together. The asserting might be, I would love for us to set aside some time so we can go on a date night once a week. With reinforce, we are now reinforcing this person ahead of time by explaining really how this is a win-win for both of us. So this might look like saying something like, this will help us stay connected and strengthen our relationship. And then the latter part of this dear man skill or the man piece is staying mindful. So keeping the conversation on course, repeating what you want over and over, kind of using that broken record. Appearing confident. So regardless of how you feel on the inside, making sure that your body language indicates that you are confident in this approach and getting what you need or asking for what you want. And then negotiating. For some individuals, we know that some situations have no negotiations. So it is what it is and there is no changing it. But there is an opportunity to meet in the middle and maybe making that goal or that situation seem more appealing to this other person. So asking this person, do you have any other ideas or possibilities of what you think we should do? How can we solve this problem? How does this look like for you? Okay. And there's some great videos. I didn't want to share the videos because they do take a little bit longer, but the videos from Rutgers, they created some kind of animated videos that share DBT skills, and it's basically this exact format, but uses pictures and words and captions. So however the person you're working with enjoys learning, however you enjoy learning, encourage you to search, I believe it's DBT-RU, and I think I have it at the end of this presentation as well. So a really great skill, and again, getting what this person needs or wants, saying no, asking for something. And I've seen this work so many times in real time. I use this skill myself all the time. I've seen individuals use this in speaking to medication providers and how empowering that might be. So again, a skill that can be quite helpful in many situations. The next piece of that dear man skill, so it goes dear man, give fast, and the give piece is for relationship effectiveness. So when improving a relationship is the main objective, we want to utilize the give skill, and a lot of this focuses on validation. So helping individuals use validation as a way to get and maintain that relationship. So I'll just put the whole acronym here. So the first is being gentle, being kind, being respectful, non-threatening. Chances are people will not be receptive if you threaten them, if you're judgmental, if you guilt trip them, if you blame them, if you cut them off, if you walk away without communicating. So instead, we're encouraging clients to be gentle and kind and patient in their approach. Acting interested, and that doesn't necessarily mean that you have to be interested, but a lot of this is through our body language. Listening and appearing interested. Trying not to mind read what the person is going to say next. Don't be on the phone. Don't be on social media. Try not to be doing your nails and giving yourself a brand new manicure while you're talking to this person. Deliberately, intentionally choosing to listen. And people will feel better about you if you seem interested in them and you give them the space and the time to respond to you. It's often the most interesting person in the room is the person that's most interested in other people. Because this is the person that asks questions and pays attention intentionally. Validate and helping individuals identify and learn about validation, because there are ways to invalidate, of course, and people have experienced kind of this corrosive invalidation, but you're validating with words and actions to show that you understand this person. You're validating only the valid and only the truth and only the facts of the situation. So this could include a person's experiences. This could include a person's feelings, emotions, beliefs about something. And validating doesn't mean that you agree with it. Doesn't mean that you like it, similar to radical acceptance. But you are really helping this client to validate and pay attention and to reflect back. I'm hearing, kind of like our basic counseling skills. I'm hearing, or what you're saying is, it sounds like, did I get that right? And using an easy manner, smiling, being lighthearted, having a little levity to that conversation. The last part here is the FAST skill for self-respect effectiveness. So this is kind of like when you wake up in the morning and you decide, am I going to be a good person today? So this is helping individuals to be fair to yourself and the other person, trying not to over apologize. So oftentimes individuals, especially with a long history of trauma, we know that people will say, I'm so sorry, I shouldn't have said that. I'm so sorry I asked, I'm sorry. Everything is with an I'm sorry. And I am also guilty of it, thinking about even in our own language of, I'm so sorry I'm late. Even though it was something totally out of your control, this might look like, thanks so much for your patience. Trying not to over apologize for making a request or for having an opinion. We're allowed to have opinions, again, going back to that Bill of Rights. Sticking to values. So while also being fair, differing values can coexist, but you're sticking to what you believe in and being truthful. So being mindful of the timing, not lying or not making up excuses, knowing that it might not be effective to have a conversation with someone when they are, having a 12-hour workday, they're coming home and they've got things in their hands and you want to talk to them about why the dishes are in the sink. But meanwhile, this person is just taking their shoes off, trying to get in, feeling stressed after a long workday. So being both truthful and mindful about timing as well. Okay. Any questions on Dear Man, Give Fast? A lot of this is much more of an approach. The script really comes in with that Dear Man, and the rest are more of how to engage in these relationships. Okay. The second half of this is switching into not only building relationships, but also ending destructive ones. And so some of these skills help individuals to do some of the following. So finding and getting people to like you. That can be such a challenging task, especially as individuals transition through different periods of their life. So helping individuals find people with similarity, exploring and identifying and building conversation skills, helping individuals to express their liking for someone or something, joining different groups. Mindfulness of others is another skill, so helping individuals to build closeness, and then ending destructive and interfering relationships by staying in our wise mind, using skills, and most importantly, staying safe. So these are the skills that help us potentially find new friends and maintain relationships, or also ending those destructive ones. So why do we find friends? We could live on this earth alone, but why do we find friends? Why do we find people to connect with? It's in our nature. Absolutely. We are humans that want to connect. We would not survive without connection. You read my mind. To belong, two are better than one. Values, it's important to connect and belong. We seek connection for survival, to share. It's part of our social brain. Fulfill attachments, connections, we're social beings. Social acceptance, fun. Yeah. We were created for relationships, peer learning. Absolutely. So many of these responses align exactly with the purpose of really why these skills exist. When we're teaching individuals to find friends, we know that forming friendships reduces that isolation and that loneliness. Co-regulation, yes. Friends are essential for happiness, for joy, for channeling and healing our inner child, for building new connections and creating new relationships that might heal some of those destructive relationships we've had in the past. And acknowledging that each person is lovable. Some individuals may come to us with these myths about being unlovable and no one will ever love me. And we know that that is not true. It may inherently feel that way once again, but we are helping individuals to explore what that means. And we know friendships last longer when we're mindful of others. So when we're intentionally paying attention to someone else without judgment, we're able to participate in this reciprocal flow of conversation. We're able to ask questions, be curious, provide feedback. This person now feels heard, understood, and appreciated. Does anyone have a friend or someone in their life that just hugs you with their words? I can think of a few people in mind, and they're so hard to come by. But people that really make you feel heard, seen, appreciated. At the same time, sometimes relationships must be ended. So this is helping individuals to explore how to end those destructive relationships that might be hopeless. They might be unwanted, especially if the relationship is abusive. Intense emotions can lead to ongoing conflict, helping individuals to think through some of the reasons for ending those relationships. It might make sense to end a relationship if it seriously interferes with your quality of life. Maybe there's an opportunity to problem solve and get another person to help, which is why we speak about couples therapy, or if you're a couples therapist. But sometimes it's just not possible, or we're at a point where we've exhausted all of our options. So that might be a reason to end a relationship. So one of these skills, again, in building that relationship is that mindfulness of others. And this is really going back to what we learned in the beginning. We have our observe, describe, and participate skill. We talked about observe and describe in the beginning, but participate is really that last piece. So observing is paying attention to this other person, being non-judgmental, letting go of being right, letting go of winning the conversation, letting go of believing that you know everything and this person may not know everything. You are simply observing, you're listening, you're acknowledging, you're noticing, you're intentionally focusing on what this person is saying. You're also then describing, so replacing some of those judgmental words with descriptive words. We can't observe someone's thoughts, emotions, assumptions, motives, beliefs. Those are things that we cannot observe. Again, we can't read someone's mind. So we're giving the other person the benefit of the doubt. And we're avoiding some of those assumptions about what they might think or feel about us. And then we're encouraging clients to participate. So we're participating in throwing ourselves and helping them to throw themselves fully into an interaction with others rather than trying to control the flow. With destructive and interfering relationships, so again, this is Important to know that, of course, all relationships come in many varieties, and the important ones, of course. So we might have friendships, marriages, we may have coworkers, sibling relationships, parent-child relationships, work relationships. Think about your relationship with your clients. Many of these are important relationships, but we want to keep in mind the degree in which they contribute to or impact or reduce the quality of life for individuals. And so it's important to explore whether a relationship is worth maintaining. And so this is how Marshall Linehan describes this difference between destructive relationship and interfering relationship. And I just put this right from the worksheet. So a destructive relationship destroys the quality of the relationship or aspects of yourself, such as your physical body and safety, your self-esteem or sense of integrity, or your ability to find happiness or peace of mind, perhaps, or you're caring for the other person, you can't access that peace anymore. An interfering relationship blocks or makes difficult your pursuing goals that are important to you, your ability to enjoy life and do things you like doing, your relationships with others, or the welfare of others that you love. And to note, DBT does not recommend using interpersonal effectiveness skills when a client's safety is compromised. Safety planning must always be prioritized, and that's likely something we're always doing depending on the level of care that we're in. But we are not using interpersonal effectiveness skills when the client's safety is compromised. When we're deciding to end relationships and those that are interfering with our goals, there's many ways to end relationships. And this is one of the handouts as well, which describes how to end those relationships through a variety of options. So you can decide to end the relationship in your wise mind, never in our emotion mind. So we know that strong emotions can lead to these reactive, quick, responsive interpersonal situations. And when we're highly aroused or we're in that high intense state of emotion, we know that our behavior is likely to be mood dependent. So we want to make sure that what we are doing is out of our wise mind. Otherwise, we may regret leaving. We may regret the decision that we made if we are making a decision based on our emotion mind. It may then be all the more difficult to really rebuild that relationship when we're acting from our emotion mind and when we're not able to think clearly. So we want to help individuals to think through the reasons for ending a relationship. And if the relationship is important and it's not destructive and there is a reason to hope it can be improved, maybe there's a way to problem solve. So problem solving might require doing some serious work. It might require getting another person, couples therapist, an outside party involved. Coping ahead. So coping ahead to troubleshoot and practice ending the relationship ahead of time. If the plan is to end this relationship, imagining yourself really going through the steps upon deciding whether this relationship is worth ending, whether it's through writing, over the phone, in person. We know technology gets in the way of many things, but there's many individuals who do choose to end relationships over a text message. So that decision is really dependent greatly on the type of relationship this person has with the other person, the degree of intimacy this person has with the other person. This person might write a Dear Man script. They might write out ahead of time exactly what they want or need and how they want to explain their decision to this person. In writing, it's almost like a resignation letter, if you will. But it is very easy to be judgmental in this letter, so being mindful of perhaps asking another person to read this script, helping this person develop this script, practicing it together, and providing constructive feedback. Being direct is always important. Again, with that Dear Man skill, I just want to emphasize that. We want to be very clear, and so that once we send a message or we say this message out loud, that it's not confusing and it's not left with uncertainty. There's also 2 other skills, which I won't go into, but practicing opposite action for love, which is a great handout, and then practicing safety first. So before leaving, and if you're working again with individuals who have an active abusive relationship or a life-threatening relationship, outreaching for support, connecting with local safe houses, domestic violence hotlines, agencies, and so on. Safety is, of course, the first priority, and being mindful, especially when individuals are fearing for their life. It's not about being effective or using a dear man script in that case. Walking the middle path. So this last piece here, when we think about interpersonal effectiveness, is dialectics. And again, much of this is really connected and a foundation of DBT. So these are the four kind of tenets of dialectics. Dialectics help us stay away from extremes and walk that middle path. So acknowledging that the universe is filled with opposing sides and opposing forces, and this can be so helpful in relationships because there's two people or perhaps more involved. So acknowledging that there's two sides that could exist, there is more than one truth. Everything and every person is connected in some way. So for everything that exists, there is an opposite. Change is the only constant. So we all experience change to some degree. And dialectics really help us to radically accept that change is constantly occurring and will always happen at some point in our life, and that change is transactional. So acknowledging that dialectics help us see how our environment is influenced by us and how we influence our environment and how our environment shapes the way our relationships form as well. So when we're helping individuals learn how to think and act dialectically, these are some questions again from that handout that are really great. So helping individuals to ask their wise mind, what am I missing? Where is the kernel of truth on the other side? Am I looking at both sides or all perspectives? Helping individuals to move away from both extremes. So being able to let go of that black or white, all or nothing thinking. Being able to balance opposites and working to balance those opposites in their life. So validating themselves and validating others. Playing devil's advocate. So being able to almost play devil's advocate for yourself. So if this person is helping or noticing only one perspective, how can they play devil's advocate to see the other perspective? And then embracing change. So we know that change is a part of life. We talked about this with radical acceptance. We know that we might as well allow this change to happen, embrace it by throwing ourselves into it, practicing radical acceptance of change if possible, especially when people and relationships begin to change in ways that you don't like. Practice radical acceptance of those changes. Allow these things in relationships and people to grow and change and develop in our life, being patient with those changes as well. And so I know I went through that fairly quickly, but again, hoping this was just an overview to help you to continue to learn more. This is really, again, just a point where you can say, I really think I like DBT, or maybe DBT is not for me, and I've got a good toolkit right now, but I hope that you are interested in learning more and just summarizing what we learned about navigating these relationships and helping individuals balance their own needs, the needs of others, or their self-respect, acknowledging when to end a relationship that's harmful or no longer serves them, and balancing acceptance and change by finding the middle path in interactions and using those dialectics to see both sides. I wanted to share again these resources. I just threw in also Marsha Linehan's book here, which is really great, Building a Life Worth Living, as well as these two DBT skills training manual and handouts and worksheets. Again, the manual goes through almost like teaching notes, and then the handouts and worksheets are helpful for clients that you're working with. These two resources at the top here are if you are interested in becoming Linehan board certified. So dbtlbc.org. Behavioral tech is Marsha Linehan and her colleagues. So that includes information, explanations, resources for practitioners and clients. And then DBT-RU, which is that website that Rutgers created to help individuals learn skills through an animated format. I wanted to thank you all for your attendance. This is my email if you ever have any additional questions. But thank you for sticking through this 4-part series. It's been so much fun, and I hope that you are interested in continuing to learn more and continuing to grow. But that is all for me, so I will pass it over to Kati for the evaluation.
Thank you so much, Crystal. We truly enjoyed hearing all of the wonderful information provided in all of these sessions. And thank you everyone for your beautiful, encouraging feedback that we see in the chat box. It's really great to interact with you all. And thank you again for your active participation. You definitely enriched learning experience. So as Crystal mentioned, we do have an evaluation component. I will share the link in the chat for to access our evaluation survey. Also, you can access it by scanning the QR code that you see on your screen. And when you close out from this window, the survey link your browser will automatically take you to the survey link. So there's a redirect. So if you just stick with the redirect, you'll access the survey there as well. I want to thank everyone for your participation, and thank you again, Crystal. I think it's been wonderful to learn about all these techniques and strategies outlined. They will be posted on our website as a product. You may review the material at your leisure and at your convenience. And that is, again, available to you at your convenience at no cost to you. So feel free to share the links with your colleagues, your friends, or anyone that you think might benefit from learning these strategies. And we hope that it enriches your practice. Again, and we want to thank you all for joining us, and we hope you have a wonderful rest of your day. Thank you, Kristen.
Thank you.